My name is Wendy Bartell, and I am with the South Carolina Department of Education in the Office of Early Learning and Literacy. This module has been created as guidance and support for districts and schools as our state implements the SCMTSS framework. The title of this webinar is The Role of Leadership in the SCMTSS Framework. This webinar may be viewed in its entirety or segmented into parts. One natural stopping point has been identified in this presentation. The learning targets for this session are: participants will understand the role of leadership in the SCMTSS system. Participants will use what they learn about leadership to create action plans to implement and or refine the SCMTSS framework in a district team, in a school leadership team, and in individual student data teams to improve instruction for all students. We will be using the SCMTSS framework and guidance document and the self-assessment of MTSS implementation rubric, also known as the SAM. Please make sure you have access to these documents. So let's begin with two essential questions that will guide our learning and thinking during this module. The first, what role does leadership play in the SCMTSS framework? And the second, how can we use what we've learned about leadership to implement and or improve the SCMTSS framework in our district, school, and individual student data teams? Let's begin by assessing what is already in place in regard to SCMTSS and accessing some background knowledge we will use throughout this module. If completing this module as a small group, turn and talk briefly about the questions above. If completing this module independently, stop and jot responses to these guiding questions to think about the reality of what is already in place at the school in regards to leadership and SCMTSS. Appendix B is a rubric to help you assess where you are regarding how leadership is used to support the SCMTSS process in your district and schools. So take a minute and turn and talk. What is your district's and schools' why for using the SCMTSS framework? In your district, school, grade level teams, how is SCMTSS currently being used to improve instruction for all students? Some background information to keep in mind while working through this module are South Carolina's definition, vision, and mission for SCMTSS. The passage referenced above can be found on page 12 of the SCMTSS Framework and Guidance document. Ask yourselves, do we have a district SCMTSS team? Does each school have an SCMTSS leadership team? Are grade level or content area SCMTSS teams organized at each school to problem solve for core instructional issues and individual student issues? If not, step 1 is to create these teams. Let's take a closer look at the role of leadership in the SCMTSS framework. Leadership is key to the implementation of any initiative. People need to understand what they are to do, why it is a good idea, and how to do it. Today you will learn what leadership must do to support the SCMTSS framework. Read the next slide about the role of leadership in this framework. Underline key words and phrases that answer this question. What role does leadership play in the successful implementation of the SCMTSS framework? Share with others in your group what was underlined and how that might look in your school. As you continue to work through this module, keep in mind those words and phrases you underlined. Here is the paragraph explaining the role of leadership in the SCMTSS framework from the MTSS Self-Assessment Guide, also known as SAM. Pause here to underline those key words and phrases as you read this paragraph. Here is the leadership section from the Self-Assessment of MTSS Implementation Guide, also known as SAM. Notice there are 5 indicators under leadership. Use this as a needs assessment to see where the district and the school is in terms of how leadership is actively supporting the implementation of the SCMTSS framework. Where does your district and your school fall for each of these 5 indicators? How could you grow each of these 5 indicators in your district and in your school? For additional information regarding the SAM, refer to Appendix D in the South Carolina MTSS Framework and Guidance document. Let's dig deeper into how leadership leads and supports the implementation of SCMTSS to ensure all students succeed. Pause now and read Appendix B from the South Carolina MTSS Guidance and Framework document. This information will be helpful as you focus on the how. Pause here and discuss this statement. Every system is perfectly aligned for the results it gets. A system that produces the same outcomes over a 3-year period has demonstrated that its way of work is organized and efficient in producing those outcomes consistently, good or not good. So, a couple of questions for reflection. What do our outcomes over a 3-year period suggest about our system? What are some ways we want to change our way of work? If you are a district MTSS team, discuss the reflection questions from the district's perspective. If you are a school leadership MTSS team, discuss the reflection question from the school's perspective. If you are a grade level MTSS team, discuss the reflection questions from a classroom perspective. The next 3 slides are designed to provide background knowledge about leadership in the SCMTSS framework. Read these slides and ask yourselves how each of these looks in the context of your district and your school. Leadership exercises 2 core functions. It provides direction by communicating the vision and the mission and creating systems that will support MTSS in districts and schools. And it exercises influence. In other words, it gives stakeholders a voice in the decision-making processes in the district and in the school. Collective leadership is a form of shared leadership. A great resource to learn more about shared leadership is Best Practices of Literacy Leaders, Keys to School Improvement, edited by Rita Bean and Allison Swan-Dagan on pages 5 through 19. Leadership that is related to improved student outcomes does 2 things. It sets the tone or the culture in the building that supports continued professional learning, and it involves taking explicit steps to engage with individual teachers about their own professional growth. Some additional information on leadership as it pertains to student outcomes. Collective leadership has a stronger influence on student achievement than individual leadership. So ask, how does our school foster collective leadership? Higher performing schools award greater influence to teacher teams, to parents, and students. How does our school, or how might our school, foster the opportunity of influence to teacher teams, to parents, to students? School leaders have an impact on student achievement primarily through their influence on teachers' motivation and working conditions. How do we keep our teachers happy and motivated, empowered, and engaged? Turn and talk and actually take a few minutes to discuss the questions in italics under these three major bulleted items. Note, if you wish to split this module into two parts, after this slide is a good stopping point. In slides 15 through 29, we take a closer look at the district and school leadership teams that support SCMTSS implementation. There are 3 to 4 types of MTSS teams. Here are the main types of teams within the SCMTSS framework. The district team analyzes district data and sets goals and creates action plans to support MTSS at the district and school leadership levels. The school leadership team analyzes school data and sets goals and creates action plans to improve Tier 1 core instruction for all students. This team also makes decisions that support Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. For example, how will the school day be structured to support Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction? The grade level MTSS team analyzes grade level data to set goals and create action plans to strengthen core instruction and problem solve for small groups of students and individual students. Numbers 3 and 4 on this slide could be one team or 2 separate teams. As we implement and/or refine MTSS at the district level, what district systems are already in place? What do we need to add or refine to make implementation more successful in strengthening core instruction in our schools? As we implement and/or refine MTSS at the school level, what school systems are already in place? What do we need to add and/or refine to make implementation more successful in strengthening core instruction and problem solving for students? Refer to the SCMTSS framework and guidance document on pages 12 and 13 for an overview of a district SCMTSS team. Jot down the roles that need to be represented on your district's team based on this overview. Use indicator number 2 from the SAM to guide your thinking around the MTSS leadership team for the district. Who will be on this team? Name names. How will this team facilitate the implementation of SCMTSS in the schools? How will the district facilitate this team in creating shared beliefs? How will the district use data to help schools support student outcomes? Some possible roles: district instructional leaders, school principals, a district data person, district leader of school psychologists, and there are other possibilities. Use indicator number 3 from the SAM to guide your thinking around active engagement in professional learning and coaching. How will the professional learning needs of the district be assessed? What is the plan for systematically growing in beliefs and knowledge and skills needed to effectively implement SCMTSS? Use indicator number 4 from the SAM to guide your thinking around strategic planning that aligns with the district improvement plan and the district's reading plan. Jot your notes for what should be included in the district's plan for implementation of SCMTSS. Remember to include how all stakeholders will be engaged. In your notes, include a step-by-step process for implementing and refining SCMTSS in your district and in your schools. Be sure to include how the plan will be progress monitored and adjusted based on student outcomes. Now let's look at the school leadership team through those same indicators. Jot down the roles that need to be represented on your school leadership SCMTSS team based on the overview in Appendix B from the South Carolina Guidance and Framework document. Use indicator number 2 from the SAM as you think about how the SCMTSS leadership team will support student outcomes at the school level. Who will be on this team? How will this team facilitate the implementation of SCMTSS? How will the principal facilitate this team in creating shared beliefs? How will the school MTSS leadership team use data to improve core instruction for all students? Think about the possible roles that need to be represented on this team. Use indicator number 3 as you think about how to actively engage teachers in ongoing professional learning and coaching at the school level. How will the professional learning needs of the staff be assessed? Beliefs, knowledge, skills. What is the plan for systematically growing beliefs, knowledge, and skills? Use indicator number 4 from the SAM as you think about the school's strategic plan for implementing and refining SCMTSS. Jot notes for what should be included in the school's plan for implementation. How will individual student data teams be organized? How often will the school leadership MTSS team meet? How often will individual student data teams meet? Remember to include how all stakeholders will be engaged. In your notes, include a step-by-step process for implementing and refining SCMTSS at your school. Be sure to include in your plan how your plan will be progress monitored and adjusted based on student outcomes. Use indicator number 5 from the SAM as you think about actively facilitating the implementation of SCMTSS as part of your school's improvement plan and your school's reading plan. What actions need to be taken to facilitate implementation of SCMTSS in this school? How will support be given to educators as you implement SCMTSS? How will data around the fidelity of implementation be collected and used to continuously refine this framework at this school? Problem-solving student data teams, numbers 3 and 4 from slide 15. These data teams are critical to the success of all students. The Literacy Teacher's Playbook by Jennifer Saravallo is a good resource to help you as you implement these student data teams to improve Core 1 instruction and to problem solve for students. Think of teachers as a think tank. As we bring all of this together in our coalescing stage of inquiry, use the SAM section on leadership as you discuss the bulleted items on this slide. Give all voices on the SCMTSS teams a chance to share ideas about each of the 5 indicators for leadership that supports MTSS. As a group, using chart paper, write the group's consensus for where the district, school, and/or grade level team currently is for each indicator. Then brainstorm ideas for how to grow in these areas. After using the SAM to determine the reality, set goals to grow leadership support. Create an action plan to meet the goals you set. And in the final stage of inquiry, going public. Implement the SCMTSS framework in your district and in your schools, including the specifics for how leadership will support this effort per the SAM rubric. Meet as a leadership team regularly to discuss the fidelity and quality implementation data. Decide as a group on the adjustments that need to be made as you implement SCMTSS.